My voice remained neutral, unwavering. Brenda's voice, however, rose in frustration. Fine. Did you even hear what I just said? Yes, dear. You're going on a date with another man this Friday. I met her gaze, my tone still calm. And you're okay with that? The shock in her voice was undeniable. Not at all. But what choice do I have? As you said, I don't control you. You make your own decisions. I studied her expression, her posture. She was resolute. Your voice and face tell me you've already made up your mind. So what choice do I have left? She exhaled sharply. I'll be back. Don't let your fragile male ego get in the way. I love you, and I'll make it right. You'll see. Then you already know it's wrong. My voice remained steady. What do you mean? I never said that. I tilted my head slightly. Would your parents or mine agree with you? Brenda lowered her eyes, saying nothing. A dead giveaway. I let the silence stretch, allowing the weight of my words to settle in her mind. She might not have spoken, but I knew she was thinking about it. You know it's wrong, I continued. We both do, she scoffed. That's ridiculous. Is it? If it were just dinner with friends, you wouldn't feel the need to make it up to me. If you were simply getting a haircut, there'd be nothing to atone for. But you said you'd make it right. Why? Because deep down, you know this isn't just dinner. And that makes you a terrible person. Her voice wavered. But you said I could do it. I never did. And I never will. The only thing I admitted was that I have no power to stop you. That doesn't mean I approve. I exhaled. I'd rather you stay with me. Go out with me. We could dine at the same restaurant, go to the same club afterward. But that's not what this is about, is it? She remained silent. You want company, but not mine. You prefer his. I narrowed my eyes. What's his name? She lifted her chin but stayed silent. What's his name? It doesn't matter, she muttered. Oh, but it does. I leaned forward slightly. Listen carefully. I'm not going to argue about this. But I don't want you prancing around with Mr. Hound. Meeting him on Friday will have consequences. Her brows furrowed. What consequences? I shrugged. You're intelligent, Brenda. You're not just beautiful, you're sharp. I've told you that many times, and not because I had to. I meant it. I let my words linger. So, I'll leave it to you, a smart woman, to figure out what those consequences are if you choose him over me. She forced a smirk. You're bluffing. You love me. You always give me what I want. I nodded. You're right. I do love you. But that doesn't mean I'll tolerate everything. I grabbed my keys and stood. I can't stop you from making reckless choices. But you've been warned. You're on your own. I walked out before she could respond. The atmosphere in our apartment was ice cold for the rest of the week. By Thursday night, I made a decision. I picked up my belongings and moved into the guest room. Brenda stood in the doorway, arms crossed. What are you doing? Stopping mid-step, an armful of clothes in my hands, I turned to her with a blank expression. Take a wild guess. Her eyes narrowed. You're moving out of our room? That's right. I resumed hanging my clothes. My wife wants to date other men. Do you really think I'll share a bed with a cheating? __? Dream on. She let out a soft, mocking laugh. You're such a child. Without responding, I carried another batch of clothes into the spare closet. She smirked. So now you're giving me the silent treatment? Trying to punish the big bad witch. I didn't look at her. Consequences. She huffed. But I ignored her. She couldn't say she wasn't warned. By Friday afternoon, I left work early and drove straight to an upscale unisex salon. I got a sharp, modern haircut, a clean razor shave, and even a manicure. No glossy finish, just clean, well-kept nails. Next door, at a high-end men's clothing store, I picked out a sleek button-down shirt, tailored slacks, and a stylish jacket. I considered getting new shoes but dismissed the idea. New shoes and dancing never mix well. On the way home, I stopped by a car wash and had them give my car a deep clean. I was ready. My truck sat in the driveway, as unsure of what to do as I was. At home, I headed straight for the shower. As the warm water ran over me, I heard Brenda arrive and head into the bathroom as well. Rather than wait around, I went downstairs and settled in. About half an hour later, she descended the stairs wearing a dress I'd never seen before, short enough to flaunt her legs, low-cut enough to display more than a hint of cleavage. She paused on the last step, clearly expecting admiration. When I said nothing, she glanced at me again. Then her eyes widened, as if seeing me for the first time. Holy __, she blurted. You look incredible. Where are you going? I leaned back in my chair. Out, I said casually. What did you think? Mimicking her own condescending tone, I added, did you assume your clueless, naive husband would just sit here like a fool, waiting for Her Majesty the Unfaithful to grace him with her presence? I shook my head and opened the garage door. My voice carried a subtle reprimand. And here I thought you were intelligent. Amazing how someone can be so wrong. Brenda's lips pressed into a thin line. Well, I don't want to be late. Charmaine doesn't tolerate it. Sliding into my spotless truck, I barely had time to hear her shocked gasp before I pulled away, smiling to myself. Gotcha that night. Charmaine and I had a fantastic time at an upscale wine bar. The place served light dinners, and on weekends, a pianist played smooth, elegant melodies for those who wanted to dance. At work, we had already discovered how effortlessly our conversations flowed. Tonight was no different. Even better. She genuinely laughed at my jokes, an underrated but undeniable way to capture a man's attention. Dancing with her felt like something more, an intimate rhythm, a silent conversation between our bodies. We moved in sync, our lips brushing now and then ears, cheeks, and sometimes, fleetingly, lips. Electricity hummed between us, but we both knew the reality of the situation. I was still married, and we both understood exactly what that meant and what it didn't. So we took our time, sipping wine, exchanging playful glances, letting our words dance as much as our bodies did. Brenda, as I've mentioned, is beautiful and fiery. But passion has a darker twin, jealousy, and I was almost certain the mere thought of me holding Miss Double D Charmaine close, whispering in her ear, would drive her absolutely insane. It would likely ruin whatever romantic fantasy she had planned with her brand new, lustful Mr. __ Hound. When I dropped Charmaine off at her apartment, she did me one last favor. She dabbed a hint of her perfume on my shirt, then leaned in, smearing her freshly painted lips across my collar, neck, and cheek. Go get her, Tiger, she teased, pressing a final kiss to my cheek. We both laughed as I got into my truck and drove home. It was barely 10 when I walked into the Big Chill. Brenda was already waiting, her expression stormy. Where the hell have you been? I shrugged, my voice cool. None of your business. Her nostrils flared. You never told me where you went with your mysterious Mr. P-Hound. I gave a humorless chuckle. I'd ask if you use protection, but honestly, I don't care anymore. You could be rotting from the inside out for all I know. It doesn't matter, because I will never touch your unfaithful body again. Brenda gaped at me, speechless. So no, I continued, I don't care where you went, or what you did, or who you did it with. I leaned against the counter, smirking. I had an incredible night, and honestly, I have you to thank for it. Her mouth opened then closed. What do you mean, thank me? I smiled. Don't you see? If it weren't for your ridiculous idea of opening our marriage, I never would have had the chance to really get to know Charmaine. And let me tell you, what a woman. I let out a low whistle. Hot, hot, hot. So, thank you, darling. Brenda let out an ear-piercing scream. So loud I briefly wondered if the neighbors would call the cops. You know I hate that __, she shrieked. I grinned. Why do you think she was the first person I called? Her face drained of color. What did you just say? I sighed, shaking my head. Once again, I seem to have overestimated your intelligence. Get a grip for a second. This isn't some complex equation, I said, my voice sharp. You made a choice. You shut me out, flaunted your so-called independence, and dressed to impress some mystery man in a way you never did for me. And now, you're shocked that I followed your lead. I folded my arms, my gaze unwavering. You rewrote the rules of our marriage without my consent. I simply played by them. The only real difference? I was upfront about who I was with. Meanwhile, you won't even say his name, as if you're too ashamed to admit it. I leaned in slightly, watching her carefully. So tell me, genius, what exactly is your problem? The confidence drained from Brenda's face. She deflated before my eyes, her sails torn by the wind of truth. A pair of tears traced down her cheeks, but I didn't let her gather herself before pressing on. Let me guess. Kevin South didn't come through for you tonight like he promised. A strangled gasp tore from her throat. She clamped her hands over her mouth, eyes wild. How do you know? Slipping into the smooth tone of a game show host, I chuckled. Once again, your lack of foresight is astounding. Think about it, Brenda. You work in an office filled with women. Kevin has the reputation of being the ultimate ladies' man. Everyone knows who's fooling around with who. It's practically an open secret. And yet, you thought you'd be the exception. She flinched. For over a month now, your so-called friends have been telling me you not only fell for Kevin's usual nonsense, but that you started seeking him out. One of your co-workers even called it googly eyes, real subtle, by the way. Who knows? Maybe he dumped her for you. Her lip trembled, and I delivered the final blow. Word around the office was that tonight was your night, that he'd booked a room at the Marriott for the occasion. Apparently, that's where he takes women for the first night. After that, it's either Motel 6 or their place. Brenda's face drained of color. She looked absolutely wrecked. Stunned, humiliated, and furious all at once. You didn't know that, did you? I mused, watching her unravel. Tears spilled down her cheeks in earnest now. Oh, Rick, I'm so sorry. Her voice cracked. You're right. I was so stupid. How can you even stand being married to an idiot like me? I tilted my head. Ah, Brenda, the good news? I flashed a cold smile. I don't have to. She blinked, fresh horror settling in. You'll be served tomorrow morning, I said flatly. We're renting this house, and the lease runs for 3 more months. You can either renew it or use that time to find something else. Either way, I won't be here. Her voice wavered. Where will you go? I shrugged. Charmaine offered me a place while I figure things out. She's got a second bedroom she uses as an office. And once I told her I was filing tomorrow, she laid out some interesting terms. Good ones. Can't wait to explore them further. Brenda's lip quivered. As for everything else, we'll split it down the middle. Now, you're free to sleep with whoever you want, without the inconvenience of a whiny husband in the way. I turned to leave, but threw one last glance over my shoulder. Hope Kevin was worth it. Epilogue. Turns out, I wasn't the only husband Kevin had wronged. One night after dinner, he walked out to find his car completely trashed. Windows shattered, paint keyed beyond repair, baby poop smeared across the seats, and his wheels stolen. While he stood there gaping, 3 masked figures dressed in all black emerged from the shadows. They robbed him, beat him to a pulp, and left him groaning in a crumpled heap. The police were baffled. Why would a group of thieves take his wallet, his knockoff Rolex, and go after his family jewels? But with no witnesses and the security cameras mysteriously covered in paint, the case went cold. That same night, 4 of us, husbands whose wives had fallen for Kevin's charm, happened to be enjoying a quiet poker game at a friend's house. What a coincidence. After Kevin recovered, he packed his bags and left the state. No one knows where he went. No one cares. Brenda moved, too. She found an apartment. But when she realized I had fully moved on with Charmaine, she skipped town altogether. I never saw her again. As for me, I stayed with Charmaine for a while, but we both understood that short-term passion doesn't always mean long-term compatibility. We parted on good terms, and I found a townhouse closer to work. Over time, I grew wiser, fitter, and more focused on what really mattered. I started hitting the gym regularly, where I met someone, a co-worker who shared my interests, challenged my mind, and had something Kevin never did: loyalty. One thing led to another, and this time I found something real.